your life feels out of rhythm isn't because you're doing something wrong, but because you've forgotten who you truly are. Not every woman is ordinary. Some are quietly chosen, deeply guided, and divinely protected, but they don't always recognize the signs. If you've ever felt different, if love has challenged you more than comforted you, if your silence speaks louder than your words, this message is for you. This isn't just motivation, it's a mirror reflecting the 7 unshakable signs that you are a woman favored not by luck, but by a higher purpose. Stay with this to the end, and you'll see why your delays were divine, your detours were protection, and your inner voice was never wrong. There is a kind of woman whose presence brings stillness even before she speaks. Her calm is not the absence of noise. It is the mastery of it. This woman doesn't chase control over life's chaos. She becomes unmoved within it. You may find her standing at a kitchen sink or walking into a boardroom. Yet regardless of the setting, she carries a centeredness that influences the entire space. Her nervous system is not reactive. It is trained. Her breath is not shallow. It is grounded. This isn't by accident. It is the result of self-awareness and disciplined practice. A woman favored by heaven is often one who has cultivated inner stillness in the midst of outer storms. Stillness does not mean passivity. It is not weakness or avoidance. It is the capacity to respond instead of react. Most people live like dominoes. One negative word, one emotional jab, and they fall. But this woman, through pain and persistence, has become like a mountain. Still, present, immovable. Neuroscience calls this emotional regulation, an ability to remain composed in high stress moments by strengthening the prefrontal cortex. But for her, it's deeper than brain chemistry. It's spiritual. She has learned to breathe through heartbreak, to soften into grief, and to pause before speaking venom. Her stillness becomes her sword. She no longer bleeds on those who didn't cut her. There's an old story of a village where people came to a wise woman in times of crisis. They came with anger, betrayal, loss, and she would say nothing at first. She would simply breathe, let the silence teach. Then slowly, after she had settled the emotions within herself, she would speak with clarity, not with heat, but with depth. The villagers began to realize they were not coming for answers. They were coming to borrow her stillness because their own had been lost. This woman, much like many walking among us, did not rise through noise, but through quiet. And that quiet was a sign she was held by something greater. A favored woman does not mirror the chaos around her. She transforms it. In her presence, others begin to feel safe enough to soften. The agitated become calm. The anxious begin to exhale. She becomes the regulator of emotional climate. Not because she's perfect, but because she is practiced. She has faced herself. She has sat with her own pain long enough to stop projecting it on others. She does not fight for power in the room. She becomes the power. And this power is not loud. It is not dominant. It is stable. It is embodied peace. From a psychological view, this type of presence is developed through intentional nervous system healing, breath work, meditative stillness, trauma integration. But beyond techniques, there is a knowing that comes from experience. She has endured nights when no one heard her cry. She has learned that control is an illusion and that surrender is strength. So while the world races and clutches, she lets go and breathes. And that breath becomes her blessing. Women often ask, how do I become more graceful under pressure? How do I not lose myself in the middle of life's storms? The answer isn't in pretending to be strong. It's in training yourself to stay soft, to stay aware. When someone tries to provoke her, she does not meet fire with fire. She meets it with centered awareness. When plans fall apart, she does not spiral. She returns to her breath. When someone walks away, she does not chase. She honors their path and remains rooted in her own. This doesn't mean she feels nothing. It means her emotions do not command her. She feels deeply, but chooses wisely. Stillness is not the goal. Stillness is the evidence. It reveals that the woman has shifted her trust from people and outcomes to something internal, something eternal. This is what makes her favored. She does not ask for approval to be at peace. She is peace. She is the quiet answer in a loud world. And from this stillness arises another quality, compassion without attachment, a sacred ability to love deeply, yet hold lightly. Most people confuse love with ownership. They believe if they give their heart, they must receive permanence in return. But a woman favored by something higher understands love is not possession. Love is presence. And presence must be offered freely, not from fear, not from need, but from fullness. She loves fully, but not foolishly. Her compassion is not enabling. It is discerning. She has learned through pain that giving too much, too soon, too often is not generosity. It is self-abandonment. So now, she gives from a healed heart, not a hollow one. She listens not just to words, but to energy. She doesn't confuse chemistry with character, and she no longer offers her sacredness to those who treat it casually. There was once a woman who spent years trying to prove her love to a man who never chose her completely. She bent, she molded, she sacrificed, believing that if she loved enough, he would see her worth. But in the end, all she had was exhaustion and silence. When she finally walked away, not in bitterness, but in clarity, something shifted. She began to love herself with the same loyalty she had offered him. And slowly, her compassion matured into wisdom. She learned that the right person doesn't require you to shrink to be chosen. True compassion doesn't mean staying where you're not respected. It means honoring yourself enough to walk away when love turns into a negotiation. This kind of strength comes from self-knowledge, from knowing you are whole already, and that you don't have to prove your worth through emotional labor. The woman favored by divine timing no longer gives to be loved. She gives because she is love. In psychology, this reflects a shift from anxious attachment to secure self-bonding. She no longer ties her self-worth to others' responses. She doesn't panic in the absence of affirmation. She knows her love is a gift, not a transaction. Her compassion flows like a river, steady, unforced, cleansing. But when a dam blocks her flow, disrespect, dishonesty, disregard, she doesn't flood the barrier. She changes direction. This woman holds space for others, but not at the cost of herself. If a man she loves is emotionally unavailable, she does not take that as a challenge. She takes it as information. If a friend begins to drain her spirit, she doesn't explain repeatedly. She silently adjusts her distance. If her family projects old wounds onto her, she loves them, but sets clear parameters. Her compassion is not weakness. It is structured. It has roots, and perhaps the most powerful sign of divine favor in her relationships is that she allows others to have their journey. She no longer tries to fix people who don't want healing. She doesn't carry what isn't hers. She can sit with someone's pain without making it her own. Her love is deep, yes, but it is clean. It does not entangle, it empowers. From this place, she becomes rare, because in a world where people either close their hearts for safety or overextend them for approval, she stands in the middle, open but discerning, available but not needy, loving but not losing herself. This kind of woman is not common. She is forged through inner fire, through repeated lessons in self-worth, through heartbreaks that led not to bitterness, but to boundaries, through years of learning the difference between being used and being valued. And now, her presence teaches others how to treat her without needing to say a word. She does not control people. She aligns herself. And from that alignment, the right people stay, the wrong ones fall away, and peace becomes her standard. The quiet truth. A woman who embodies stillness and compassion without attachment is already operating under divine favor. She may not always feel seen by the world, but heaven has been watching all along. There is something unshakably powerful about a woman who treats her daily habits as sacred. Her life doesn't move in bursts of inspiration. It flows from a deep reservoir of intention. While many chase momentary highs and emotional peaks, she understands that the foundation of favor is not built in grand events, but in quiet, consistent alignment. You may not notice her routines at first glance. There is no show, but everything she touches, from how she greets the morning to how she prepares for rest, carries the fingerprint of discipline wrapped in grace. She does not wait for life to feel right. She moves in the rhythm of what she knows to be right. Many women live fragmented lives. They feel scattered, always starting over, constantly resetting. Not because they lack ambition, but because they haven't yet anchored themselves in ritual. The favored woman is different. She sees routine not as restriction, but as reverence. She wakes with awareness, not scrolling. She nourishes her body with mindfulness, not mindless urgency. She speaks to herself with clarity, not condemnation. Her mornings are not rushed declarations of business. They are ceremonies of readiness. Each movement, each breath, each choice is a quiet offering to the future she is already becoming. There is a story of a young woman who once lived in a house filled with noise, external and internal. The television was always on, conversations were laced with comparison, and her mind was cluttered with the voices of others. She could not hear herself. Her days began with chaos and ended in exhaustion. But after a painful breakup, something shifted. One evening, instead of seeking noise to distract her, she sat in silence. It was uncomfortable at first, but eventually she lit a candle, played soft music, and simply began to listen. Over time, that single act became her ritual, and from there her life began to change, not all at once, but deeply and permanently. She started journaling each morning. She began moving her body with care. She learned to prepare nourishing meals not as a chore, but as a form of love. Slowly, she restructured her life from the inside out. That is the power of sacred habit. It's tempting to think that favor just descends like some mysterious grace we have no say in. But more often, it's cultivated, grown in the garden of self-respect and sustained discipline. Discipline is not about control. It's about alignment. A woman who is favored knows that how she lives privately shapes what she attracts publicly. The energy she brings to each day is not random, it's curated. She doesn't just wish for peace. She creates the conditions for it. She doesn't hope to be loved. She becomes love in action, in practice, in intention. From the lens of neuroscience, the brain thrives on repetition. Every repeated action wires new pathways. What this means is simple: your habits are your destiny. Not because they trap you, but because they train you. A woman who rises early to meditate isn't just being spiritual. She's recalibrating her nervous system. A woman who writes out her thoughts each day isn't just journaling. She's creating cognitive space for clarity. A woman who prepares herself with care is telling her mind, I am worthy of attention. I am worth showing up for. This consistency leaks into her relationships. People feel her energy before they understand her habits. She brings a calm predictability that others can trust. She doesn't swing between extremes. She doesn't need to perform to be loved. And because she shows up for herself every day, she no longer tolerates relationships that operate in chaos. If a man offers her love that is inconsistent, distracted, or emotionally immature, she recognizes it, not from judgment, but from inner contrast. She's seen what real devotion looks like. because she gives it to herself, and so anything less feels foreign, not familiar. Imagine a woman who makes her morning cup of tea like it's a sacred rite, who steps outside to breathe even for 5 minutes before touching her phone, who speaks gratitude aloud not because life is perfect, but because she's training her spirit to recognize abundance. Her schedule may look ordinary, but the energy behind it is transformative. Over time, this intentional rhythm does more than improve her day. It reshapes her self-image. She begins to walk with dignity. She makes clear decisions. She no longer rushes to prove herself because she's already been met by herself in stillness. This doesn't mean she never falls off track. It means she knows how to return quickly, gracefully, without shame. When she misses a practice, she doesn't spiral into self-judgment. She gently resets. She knows that discipline without compassion is brutality, and compassion without structure is chaos. She lives in the balance. She has made peace with imperfection, and yet she still expects more from herself because she honors what she carries. In relationships, this kind of woman is rare. She doesn't lose herself in another person because she already belongs to a structure that keeps her rooted. Her sense of identity isn't easily shaken by rejection because her value is reinforced every day through practice. She brings a wholeness that doesn't demand others to complete her. And this is what makes her so attractive, not in appearance, but in presence. There is an ancient principle, as within, so without. It means that what is cultivated in the unseen eventually shapes the seen. A woman who cultivates patience in solitude will attract harmony in partnership. A woman who honors her word to herself will attract those who do the same. A woman who rises each day with quiet strength becomes a lighthouse in a world drowning in distraction. Discipline also speaks when she must say no. When invitations don't align with her values, she doesn't hesitate. When people test her boundaries, she remains firm but kind. Her yes means something because she knows the weight of her time and attention. She's not available for every emotional fire. She's not reactive to every opinion. Her life is not driven by external demand, but by internal design. A man once told a story of meeting such a woman. He said, "I was drawn to her, not because of how she looked, but because of how she lived. She wasn't trying to impress. She wasn't trying to convince. She had a rhythm to her life that made me want to rise to her level. She was clear, focused, kind. She made me want to be more disciplined just by being in her presence." That is the hidden power of disciplined grace. It raises the standard without a single demand. There's a difference between the woman who performs discipline and the woman who embodies it. Performance is exhausting. It seeks validation. It hides flaws. Embodiment is different. It allows space for failure but stays committed. It isn't rushed by comparison. It moves from a deep place of knowing, I am becoming who I was meant to be, one aligned step at a time. This woman, though she may appear ordinary to the untrained eye, is deeply favored, not because her life is easy, but because her soul is trained. She's not waiting for someone to come fix her life. She builds it. One breath, one choice, one quiet act of devotion at a time. When she enters a relationship, she doesn't demand perfection, but she does require alignment. She's not moved by charm. She's moved by consistency. She listens not just to words, but to rhythm. Can this man keep pace with her values? Can he honor the sacredness of what she's built? Can he move with intention? Or will he require her to slow down for his chaos? And when she loves from overflow. Her emotional cup isn't empty. Her energy is not scattered. She knows how to give without depletion. Because before anyone else chose her, she chose herself. Daily. And that choice rewired her brain, softened her heart, and strengthened her spirit. Such a woman is not in competition. She's not in a rush. She knows that the universe honors structure, not just sincerity. She knows that prayers without preparation are noise, that longing without action is emptiness. So she doesn't just pray for love. She prepares for it. She doesn't just desire peace. She disciplines herself into it. Her mornings are not about control. They are about alignment. Her evenings are not about escaping. They're about integrating. Her days are not wasted in drama. They are structured for depth, and this structure gives her freedom. The freedom to be fully herself, regardless of who stays or leaves. The world may not celebrate this woman loudly, but life rewards her quietly, in doors that open with grace, in relationships that don't require constant repair, in a mind that feels safe to live in, and in a soul that rests even while she's moving. And all of it begins not with the grand, but with the consistent, not with the urgent, but with the sacred, not with the crowd's applause, but with a quiet commitment whispered to herself. I will show up for me, again and again, until it becomes who I am. She does not need to announce who she is. She simply lives it. While others are busy explaining their intentions, defending their decisions, or justifying their behaviors, she is quietly embodying everything they speak of. In the world we live in, consistency has become rare. It's common to meet people who say one thing and do another, who change depending on who they are around, who compromise their principles to gain approval. But the woman favored by something higher is different. She values her alignment more than she values attention. She is not perfect, but she is integrated. She is not loud, but she is clear. And above all, she is the same person in private that she is in public. This is not just a moral virtue, it's an energetic truth. In psychology, this alignment between internal values and external behavior is called congruence. A congruent person lives without internal tension. They are not at war with themselves. Their life feels lighter, not because it's easier, but because they are not dragging a false self behind them. For a woman, this kind of integrity is especially powerful in relationships. It allows her to be rooted in truth even when emotions are high. It allows her to communicate clearly without manipulation. And it allows her to walk away from dishonesty without bitterness. There is a quiet kind of power that builds over time when your words and actions match. When you keep the promises you make to others, and especially the ones you make to yourself. When you don't need reminders to be kind, to be disciplined, or to be present, because it's already in your nature. This is not performative goodness. It's not the kind that depends on being seen. It's a goodness that continues even when no one is watching. Especially then, a woman who lives with integrity understands that the most dangerous betrayal is not when others deceive you. It's when you deceive yourself. She refuses to live a life of contradiction. If she says she values emotional honesty, she doesn't flirt with people she's not serious about. If she says she's committed to her growth, she doesn't indulge in behaviors that stunt it. If she says she's ready for a real relationship, she doesn't entertain situations that diminish her worth. Her values are not for decoration, they are for direction. There was once a woman who stayed in a relationship that made her question herself daily. The man she loved had charisma, but no character. He said all the right things in public, affirmations, romantic gestures, promises of change. But in private, there was neglect, criticism, subtle forms of control. For years, she tolerated this duality because she believed that love required endurance. But one day, she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. She had slowly drifted away from her own truth. Her laughter was quieter, her eyes didn't shine the same. And that day, she decided no more. She left not because she didn't love him, but because she loved herself enough to return to her own integrity. That return was the beginning of everything. The strength to live in integrity often comes through pain, through the discomfort of having to walk away from people who do not match your standard, through the silence of standing alone in your values, while others mock your discipline, through the temptation to take shortcuts, to lie just once, to present a version of yourself that will be more liked. But the favored woman endures this discomfort because she knows peace built on truth is better than comfort built on illusion. Relationships, when rooted in truth, become sanctuaries, not performance stages. She does not need to perform emotional availability just to keep someone's interest. She does not wear masks to hide her boundaries or her needs. She is not afraid to say, "This is who I am, this is what I value, this is how I move." And she means it. The people who can meet her there stay. Those who cannot drift away. She does not chase clarity. It arrives in her life through the light of her consistency. And because she lives this way, she recognizes those who don't. Her sensitivity is not just emotional, it is ethical. She can feel when words are empty. She can tell when someone's charm is a cover for confusion. She can see through actions that look loving but are actually laced with self-interest. And because she values her peace, she does not waste her energy proving that she is right. She simply watches patterns. A person's character always speaks louder than their declarations. This quiet discernment comes from years of watching how energy never lies. A man can say he respects you, but if he disregards your time, your boundaries, your growth, then his actions cancel out his words. A friend can call you sister, but if she gossips when you're not in the room or competes with your happiness, then her presence is a threat in disguise. A family member can say they love you, but if they constantly dismiss your healing, then what they offer is not support, it's control. For a woman who lives in alignment, these contradictions are not tolerable. Not because she is arrogant, but because she has worked too hard to become whole. She has tasted what it's like to live with herself in peace. She no longer trades that peace for the illusion of connection. And this, perhaps more than anything, is the sign of deep favor. Not that she is never hurt, but that she refuses to abandon herself in order to be loved. One might ask, how does one become such a woman? It doesn't happen overnight. It begins in small moments. Choosing honesty when lying would be easier. Staying consistent when the path gets hard. Being kind when bitterness is tempting. Holding boundaries when the pressure to people please arises. Apologizing when wrong, not to be seen as good, but to restore integrity. These are quiet choices, invisible to the world, but they build a structure inside that becomes unbreakable. There is an old Eastern proverb, the one who walks in truth walks securely. This security is not in outcomes, it's in identity. She does not fear being exposed because there is nothing false to reveal. She does not fear being misunderstood because her life explains what her words do not. She does not fear being alone because her solitude is honest, not hollow. And it is from this honest solitude that her relationships flourish. She attracts partners, friends, and communities who are not looking for perfection, but for truth. People who are tired of the games, the pretending, the emotional inconsistency. People who crave depth over drama, presence over performance, realness over rush. And when such people meet her, they feel something rare, a steadiness that invites their own honesty to rise. There was a man who once described such a woman. He said, "She didn't need to say,